Apparently, first off, what's up with it, taste buds? What it do? So, what's the word on the street? So, everybody's talking about, specifically in the Tekken community, about 2D characters and how they affect, Tekken, whatnot, etc., etc. Actually, you know what? So, this is like a tweet. Oh my god. So, that's not the first time I've seen that tweet, right? Uh, oh, I like this combo. Big counter hit, you know what I'm saying, leads to, right, like, no break on the throw. And just neutral jump 4, right? 1-1-2 reset 4-4. Big damn, like, yeah, that's bullshit. That's definitely bullshit, right? 100% that's bullshit. So Nee sees this and Book posted this. And he says, I hope guest characters disappear. Next time they were unfair. And the main man comes back and he says, while, quoting the tweet, right? I hope guest characters disappear. He says, yes, let's rob 6 million people of cool guest characters because 2 of them are problematic at the absolute highest level of play. Now he's talking, of course, about like Geese, which we've just seen, Akuma, more specifically, which have like kind of like every season they come up, they get like these new combos, right? Where like we think that the death combo is gone or the death situation is gone, but it turns out like it's kind of like just a little more difficult to get to, or it doesn't quite as much kill, and it just leaves you with a sliver of life, and like I feel like that's them trying to, fix it, right? Like they're trying to fix it at this point. And by that, like I mean like they're either scaling the damage, changing the meter gain, but not only like the whole meter thing, right? Because we've dealt with meter characters before. Because Eliza is now a meter character, right? Eliza is now a meter character. And in Tekken, an original meter character in Tekken, right? From Tekken Revolution, obviously, but still in Tekken. And like I made this tweet. Oh yeah, this kind of like deepens the hole right here. So Spag asked he said he woke up to some savage shit on Twitter. Let me ask you, would you want to see 2D characters in Tekken 8? 58% of the people said no. And 41% of the people said yes, right? 41% of the Tekken audience. That's still a lot of people. And I don't think like it should be left up to, 58% to decide. And they all have their opinions, obviously. And I ain't going to, take nothing away from all of them. But Arslan chimes in. He says, hella yes. I want 2D in Tekken 8. It's super fun to have variations. Also, you learn different things. Plus, you improve your execution. It's just me, my personal opinion. That's what his response was. And honestly, like, I'm definitely on the same side of Arslan Ash. Like, and my tweet kind of like, echoes that, right? I say, I hear you. To say characters don't belong is pretty limiting. I play a bunch of games, and to have the meta of the competitive aspect change based on character matchups is important to some degree. If the interest is expanding the level of play in any fighting game. So I basically was just trying to say that, like, coming up with characters that fit inside your game, yeah, that's cool and all, but they now have guest characters, right? Like, they have the ability to put other characters in this game, and they play, they fit well in the system. Well, I'm not going to say they fit well in the system. I'm just going to say that, they kind of go crazy in the system in some instances with like Akuma and Geese, right? Now, dealing with these characters is one thing. Right? But the main crux of the problem seems to be that a lot of the older Tekken community, or the OG Tekken community, myself included, I would like to assume, have all said that, well, a lot of them are in agreement that, you saw people early throughout the years, like when Akuma was in the game or Geese was there. Like, now don't get me wrong, we've seen some dumb shit, right? Like, we've seen Geese do some dumbness. We've seen Akuma robbing people. We've seen it, man. Super Akuma has done it. He was showing me stuff about how he can do it multiple times, and I was like, damn, every time, right? But people deal with that like in different ways, right? There's a lot of like, you know, Tekken traditionalists, I would say, who say that, you know, well, I don't like projectiles in Tekken, and it should only be, you know, Tekken style characters. And for me, I'm like, I don't know how true that is. Not for me anyway. Because personally, like, Tekken's a dope ass game regardless. I get it, but everything that they've done has been to make Tekken a better game overall, right? And even though like some of these characters are kind of, you know, fucked up in the system, it doesn't mean that the characters are inherently bad. It just means that they haven't found a proper way to make the character work, you know, on an even level with some of these other characters that are already in the game. Now, it could be said that like they want the characters to work this way. Like they want them to like be one hit kill. I mean, in all honesty, like that's stupid, but you know, what if that's the case? Maybe they want the character to play that way. And if that is the case, that's really dumb. However, I don't think that's the case. I'm pretty sure they're trying to find an even ground between where these characters work really well in the Tekken system, or yeah, they just want the characters to work well in the Tekken system. And on top of that, like it shouldn't be like considered a burden that these characters exist in Tekken. That shit's a gift. Like it's not like the worst thing ever that you have guest characters, right? Because if they're implemented very well, then you have games that are ridiculously amazing, right? You have games that like transcend time in a lot of instances, right? So like people talk about like, you know, games being broken and whatnot, et cetera, but a lot of the games that exist that transcend like, you know, the genres that we play, right? Like Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Like you couldn't even play 70% of the cast in that game at a high level, like because all the characters suck, right? Like they don't suck, but you're not playing it. Like you can't fight like Servbot versus, you know, like a mag team. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't get me wrong, there's some advantages, but like you're probably about to get fucked on. If you're fighting an experienced player, they know how to deal with this. So your gimmicks are null and void. Go back to the drawing board, and by that I mean you got to pick a whole new fucking character, right? So, you think that's the only one? I'll give you another one. Capcom versus SNK 2. Capcom versus SNK 2, roll canceling took that game to the next level. Now, don't get me wrong, roll canceling is bullshit, because the person who showed me the ways of fucking roll canceling, they didn't like guide me into it. They legit was like, hey, we're gonna play a bunch of CVS 2 today, and boy, I got some shit for you, Steve. And literally, I played CVS 2, and Rob, if you're still in the chat, you remember this. Rob, remember when we went down to Troy, Missouri with fucking Glenn? You remember that? Do you remember that? We went down to Troy, Missouri with Glenn, and we were playing in that fucking land center when land centers were brand new in the Midwest and people really weren't tripping off of them. And we played literally from like 6 p.m. to like 8, or no, it was like 5 or 2 or some weird ass time the next day. Do you remember? You look, Rob is in the chat. He telling you right now. Pro, that's my boy Rob. He telling you. We played CVS 2 for like 8 hours. Like dead ass like 8 hours. And we were listening to some weird techno song. It was a trance song. It wasn't a techno song. And that shit just made me think it was like 10 minutes. I don't even know how it worked. I wasn't doing nothing but drinking soda at the time. So I don't even know how I got caught in that vortex. But the fact of the matter is that CVS 2, part of that game's uniqueness and the high level play stems around the fact that there are people who use roll canceling, and that game is considered one of the greatest fighting games by a lot of players. You know what I'm saying? Me personally, I put it up there, but for me, like, I feel like you have some of the things that happens in these games, especially for a game like Tekken. Tekken is the most popular it's ever been, right? And that's, you know, apparent in the sales, the popularity on like Steam, the fact that it's on PC and stuff like that. All these advantages, all these things that they've changed in Tekken over the years has led them to this point. So to say that you don't want guest characters in a game because it might break the system, I feel like that's not the proper way to look at it, I should say. I feel like the way saying that like 2D characters are just inherently bad is the wrong way to look at it. I think that there is a workable ground where you can have these 2D characters and they operate in the same space. They can definitely do it. Look how well they've done it already. As much as Akuma is a bit the biggest piece of shit when it comes to like fighting, and they've definitely had to nerf him multiple times, it doesn't mean that character isn't sick. Like, don't get me wrong, I hate fighting Akuma, but it's not whack that Akuma is in Tekken. Like, I think that shit's cool. Same thing goes for Geese. Like, Geese is a legendary character. Akuma is a legendary character. These characters being in Tekken is something that, like, people are saying they don't want them back, but it's not only about, like, the competitive side of Tekken. Part of the appeal of Tekken is the interest of the people who only like to watch or who only like to hit these buttons, right? Like, it's not only specifically for those people. So I feel for, you know, the competitive, right? So although I do feel like that should be something that is kept in mind, to say that, like, oh, you know what, these characters shouldn't even exist in the game. And I'm like, bro, like, do you know how many games have fallen by the wayside because they can't get the kind of appeal to get a guest character? You know, do you know what has to be done to make a guest character? And I'm not saying, hey man, you guys don't get it. I'm saying that, like, if you think about what needs to happen to get a guest character, what the purpose of that guest character is to do, I feel like Tekken 7 did an outstanding job. Like, Geese, Akuma, Noctis, are you serious right now? Like, that's crazy. Like, that's crazy to kind of Negan, a character from a TV show in a fighting game. Like, that's crazy, right? So for me, I feel like, why would you take that appeal? Why would you take that away from your audience? Because I love Tekken. Like, I fucking love Tekken. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, and I've always been of the mind of being like, well, look, man, how do you make this game better or more, makes it appeal more to the people who are just watching it, who aren't playing, or who just may like to hit buttons? You know what I'm saying? Like, I've seen other games go the route of keeping it, like, to a system of, like, characters having specifically these tools, or only being able to work inside this system, right? And what that does is that puts your game in a corner. It puts your game in, like, and this is completely my opinion, right? Like, out of all the games that I played, out of all the years that I played games, like, I feel like the minute that you do that, you're carving out this corner or this spot, right? And it only becomes a corner when you can no longer, like, expand that idea, because eventually you're going to hit, like, a development wall. So let's just say one of the things that you initiate is you say, hey, we're not going to put in, you know, these awkward jumps or a fireball or a projectile, right? And that's your line. But what happens when you've been making a game for 15, 12, 20 years, and it's like, well, look, we felt like we're tapped. Like, and even if that's not even the case, or you can literally just say, hey, let's shake things up. You can say, hey, I have this great idea for implementation of a projectile-based character in a game that's never had a dominant projectile-based character. Because for those who don't know, there's always been, to my knowledge, and I know at least in Tekken 2, right? I can't 100% speak for Tekken 1 because my first real Tekken game where I owned was Tekken 2. But you had Devil, and Devil always had laser. He always had at least 2 lasers. So there's always, surprise, surprise, guys, get that shit out your eyes, guys, there's always been projectiles in Tekken. So that argument should no longer even be on the table anymore. Like, I don't know why people forget that these characters already had projectiles in Tekken, but the thing is, it's a unique thing. It's a unique thing. But now they've expanded upon it. They have a better understanding of it, and the implementation is even better. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not, sliced evenly. That bread ain't cut, 50-50, but the fact of the matter is that the goal is to implement these characters to a playable degree. Now, if it comes to the point where the character is so broken to where they can't play him, by all means, and I'm the last person that will ever say this, by all means, ban the fucking character. Ban him. If the character is that bad, and it wouldn't matter if they had fireballs, fucking swords coming out the ass, it would not matter. Ban that motherfucker. If he's that bad, if the character is that bad, and I am against banning characters, I'm not for it at all. But if it's that bad, then ban him. However, don't just say, you know what? Never bring that character back. Leroy's parry was what? Oh, I'm done, bro. His parry catches everything. His parry is too good. Not keeping in mind that they had characters with those exact same traits before. That's not the first time that we've seen a character with a parry like that. You know what I'm saying? Maybe, that effective, that's one thing. But just the fact that, you know what I'm saying, you have to deal with it in the development side of the game. That's something that happens in the development life cycle of a game that you will not be able to avoid.